My new book, Facts That Aren't True, is out now. Don't forget about my other book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions. Click the link in the description now.
It seems like there's no way to falsify evolution because no matter
No, there is.
no matter
but
what
we
no,
have
no
millions
matter,
of species, and you're telling me this one spider looks like it hasn't changed.
No,
Therefore, throw out
many
the entire
examples of that.
thing.
No matter what evidence that's brought forth that contradicts the whole evolution narrative, anything that goes against their predictions, they'll just come up with another explanation to save their sacred cow.
Yeah, like intelligent design.
Like for instance, when they discovered like dinosaur soft tissue, right? Fossilized soft tissue, right? They're like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe that soft tissue can last for over 65 million years.
Yeah, we didn't know
crazy.
yet, and now we know.
So now they're gonna change their their idea of like how long like soft tissue can last. I mean,
Man, you really need to buy my book so you don't say silly things like this. So we didn't know that soft tissue could last that long because we had never discovered it. Then when we made a discovery, unlike you guys, we change our minds when we find new discoveries. But you can't tell how old something is based on does it have fragments of collagen fibers still embedded within it. We have dating techniques like radiometric dating and stuff like that. And those results hold true. What was the other thing I was going to say? We know, so if these dinosaur bones or whatever are only 4,000 years old, then finding soft tissue should be the norm instead of the exception. So there are bog bodies. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, but you find them like in the UK or whatever. They're bodies that were just thrown into these swampy, marshy areas. And we know exactly how old they are because we can find like artifacts that date them archaeologically. So we know they're from time periods going back several thousand years. Not a single one of those bog bodies displays even the tiniest fragment of fossilization, despite the fact that they're buried in the perfect conditions for it. They're underwater within sediment, buried in sediment underwater. Those bog bodies are as old as the flood narrative or whatever, which supposedly explains the fossil record. But they don't resemble what we see in the fossil record, even in the slightest.
But you know that there has been other discoveries of like dinosaur flesh, dinosaur soft tissue, not just from like I think the most famous one was from Mary Schweitzer, but there has been other discoveries.
Yeah, that's cool and that's interesting, and that's not how you tell how old something is.
Right. And so that doesn't like make you question, is the whole evolution narrative really true? Have you ever even questioned it at least like once in your lifetime? Like, maybe I should just not be following what people say. Maybe I should be analytical and critical about what I'm taught and see if what they're saying is like really factual.
Yeah, I would say that I do that. It's just that finding some collagen fibers doesn't threaten the entire scientific enterprise which has built up our body of knowledge about fossils. For example, we have radiometric dating, which yields consistent, true results for how old these things are. You don't tell how old something is based on do you find some soft tissue within it or not. And the structure of the fossil record completely supports evolution too, because what you find are entire groups and genres of animals and plants and whatever that don't coexist. Nobody's ever found a trilobite fossil, and we have millions of them mixed among dinosaur fossils because they didn't exist at the same time. Nobody's ever found dinosaur fossils with anything from the Pleistocene era because they didn't coexist. We have found mass fossil graveyards all over the planet, such as the La Brea tar pits and ashfall in Nebraska, and the the hot springs, South Dakota, where I was born. Actually, there's a mammoth site there, and you find lots of different critters in there, but never anything that surprises us with regard to what, a rabbit inside the belly of a T-Rex. That would completely ruin the theory of evolution. Just like the genetic thing we went over earlier, that would have immediately debunked everything we thought about evolution, but it didn't. None of these results ever do that. And you don't use a statistical outlier to claim, oh, this explains everything.
Yeah, I see. So, would you say like stasis, right? When it comes to like certain organisms, don't you think that is kind of like, this whole evolution thing is kind of questionable? Because I could give you like tons of examples of stasis when it comes to like certain organisms, like this.
Like horseshoe crabs?
Organism is like 100 million years old, right? But the body plan, like for instance, I have my notes here. It says, yeah, so 100 million years of stasis for the bee body plan.
The body plan? Well, that's...
It says right here, researchers at Oregon State University have discovered the oldest bee ever known. A 100 million year old specimen preserved in almost lifelike form in amber. And it's completely identical to modern bees.
Okay, the body plan, like head, abdomen, thorax, stinger, compound eyes, whatever.
I mean,
fuzzy.
It looks the same.
That doesn't... Yeah, okay. And sharks have... The body plan of sharks has been like that for 400 million years. But we know that the sharks of the past are not the same sharks we have today. And for that bee, yeah, sure, the body plan...
So, wait, how do you know that?
Well, because for sharks, they look completely different. Like there's no helicoprion and there's no megalodon running around, and there's others that one had like a satellite dish looking dorsal fin. Those don't exist anymore. But the bee, like these, have you ever seen photographs of these like insects and stuff trapped in amber?
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't make out a lot of details. Because they're buried in the amber and it's messy.
No, some of them you can see like details. It looks like
some, but we certainly don't have the DNA, so we have no idea if they're actually like genetically unchanged or anything like that. But there's nothing wrong with the idea of a body plan sticking around for millions of years.
Right. But you believe that human beings, like modern human beings, evolved like drastically in a very fast, I guess, rate in the last like several million years, though, right?
I mean, I wouldn't call that that millions of years doesn't sound super fast. We'll get into that in just a second, but I really want to point something out really important here. That what you're doing makes absolutely no sense, because what you're doing is, look, I found this article that says bees have not changed that much in 100 million years.
Or at all.
Therefore, life on the planet is only 6,000 years old.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just.
Well, that's what you think.
Trying to, like, figure out. I'm just trying to like understand all these discrepancies, because on one hand, you guys say, yes, evolution happens for us. It happened for us, right? Like very drastically. That's how we got to modern humans from whatever, prior human organism that was prior to humans, right? But for all these other creatures, even for like 50 plus million years, they haven't changed not even a tiny bit, at least anatomically.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Kind of, but what I'm trying to tell you is that these arguments don't support what you actually believe, which is that life was created only a few thousand years ago. It doesn't do that at all.
Okay, but I didn't make that assertion. I'm just like,
yeah, but that's what you
holes.
believe.
Okay, but I'm not making that argument right now. I'm just like showing the holes in this whole evolution fairy tale, what I believe to be a fairy tale.
Okay. So human evolution?
Yeah. What? Yeah. What about human evolution?
Well, you brought it up a little bit ago before I said that other thing.
Yeah. So there would have to be like some or a lot of anatomical changes to get to like modern humans from like whatever prior human species, right? Like at least some, right?
Not, I mean, not super dramatic. It's really just changes in proportion, not like whole scale changes in like what the thing actually is.
Okay, but then I'll say, well, how come these other creatures, these other organisms, hasn't changed not even a tiny bit? At
Well,
least
if
like
they're
anatomically for the past like 50 million years,
right.
we have so many examples of this.
Do you know what survival of the fittest means?
Yes, I do.
What does it mean?
That means those that survive get to pass on their they have traits that allow them to survive and pass on their genes.
Sort of. So what it means is the organisms that have the greatest fitness, or in other words, organisms that like fit well into their environment, do the best, and then do all those things you said. So some environment like horseshoe crabs, they live off of continental shelves, which is just like the shallow-ish waters just off the coast of continents. That really doesn't change all that dramatically over even vast periods of time because water is water, the salinity is the salinity.
Okay, so
yes, there are some temperature fluctuations and things like that. We did have an extinction event, but we can kind of tell by the fossil record that the horseshoe crabs that made it through it are the ones that were living basically on the opposite side of the globe when it happened. They've since been able to migrate around the world, which isn't that surprising because it's been tens of millions of years. But some environments remain stable. And so you wouldn't, like, there's no reason that an organism must evolve if its environment isn't changing. Sometimes they do, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, there has been drastic environmental changes over the last like 100 million years, right? I'm talking about really drastic. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yet these organisms are still the same even after supposedly 100 million years. So how is that possible? That is my question. And
because
and
not every change is a global change. Like
well,
when there were
changes, weren't there a supposed meteorite hitting the Earth 65 million years ago, which led to the extinction of dinosaurs?
Yeah, it didn't affect the entire planet in the same way. Like that is an example of a global event. There aren't a ton of global events. There have only been a few of those, I would say, in Earth's history. But
okay, this is an article I just found on my notes. It says here fossil shows daddy long legs remain unchanged. This is from MSNBC. We learned scientists amazed 3D images show harvestmen nearly still the same after 300 million years. And I quote, "It is absolutely remarkable how little that harvestmen have changed in appearance since before the dinosaurs," study researcher Russell Garwood of Imperial College London said in a statement. "If you went out into the garden and found one of these creatures today, it would be like holding a little bit of prehistory in your hands." Like what, 300 million years and nothing, no evolution. Okay. Yeah.
Again, we haven't sequenced their genome. I can't. I'm trying to read the article on National Geographic, but I can't remember my password or whatever. We don't know what their DNA is. So we don't know if they've gone completely unchanged or anything like that. It's kind of like tuataras. Tuataras are these cute little reptiles that live in New Zealand. And we have fossils of them from the Jurassic period. And we say, oh my God, they look the same. Well, like their bone structure, like their body structure looks the same. But when we look at tuataras today, we actually see that they have the fastest evolving DNA of any vertebrate that we know about.
What's the name of the organism again?
Tuatara.
Tuatara.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuatara, I think. So just because they look the same, it can be a case of convergent evolution. It could be a case of what was I gonna say? They could like have kind of the same body structure, but it wouldn't mean that there haven't been significant changes like to their physiology or whatever. Or some organisms remaining static through time because they live in an environment that is relatively consistent. That's really not a problem for evolution.
So would you admit that at least that this is something that evolutionists did not predict, right? So they had.
Oh yeah, probably not necessarily. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and that's like another issue I have. Like,
okay,
they come up with these predictions, right? And we they discover like, this contradicts our predictions. That's not like real science, right? Because science, it's about making predictions and making discoveries that affirms your predictions, right?
Sure, and the vast majority do. Again, this is what I said earlier. You don't take statistical outliers and then say, aha, this explains the full set of data that I have. That's like concluding humans are 7 feet tall because Shaquille O'Neal is 7 feet tall. Like if I said to you, the average adult male is 5'10", and then you said, what about Shaquille O'Neal? I would say, yeah, the average is still 5'10", and with these fossils or whatever, how many of these are there? Let's go crazy and say there's 1,000. There aren't, but let's go crazy and say there's 1,000. Well, we have 1.5 million documented species today, so it's less than 0.1%. And of the organisms that are in the fossil record, I don't know how many fossil organisms we've documented. I'm sure it's a huge number. I doubt it's 1 million, but the vast majority of those are different from the life we see today.